Well, Tony Ellis wrote it, directed it, produced it, everything. And I think it was one of his finest efforts. I know this, that Tony liked that show better than any show he had ever done in his life. And I think it showed. And I was very close to Tony up until the day he died. And he would very often refer to that show as with great affection. There's nothing much I can say about it except for the fact that I enjoyed doing it. It was one of those shows that I think was so well written that it played itself. And you can't say that about too many shows, I'll tell you that.
After Gunsmoke spent 1957 as CBS's only adult Western, the network decided to see if expanding the genre had any advertising bite. In February of 1958, they launched 2 new adult Western dramas.
There's a town in Montana Territory where it's against the law to carry a gun. The sheriff lives by this order, but because of it, other men can die.
Frontier Gentlemen.
Created, written, produced, and directed by Antony Ellis, the first was called Frontier Gentlemen. The show began coast to coast on the afternoon of Sunday, February 2nd, with a debut episode called The Shelton Brothers.
Herewith, an Englishman's account of life and death in the West. As a reporter for the London Times, he writes his colorful and unusual accounts. But as a man with a gun, he lives and becomes a part of the violent years in the new territories. Now starring John Dehner, this is the story of JB Kendall, Frontier Gentleman.
John Dehner starred as JB Kendall, a journalist writing for the London Times, slowly weaving his way in and out of the Western territories during the late 19th century. Jerry Goldsmith, then a CBS staff musician, composed the haunting trumpet theme.
The journey had taken 98 days from St. Louis. I had come by riverboat up the Missouri, the little stern wheeler climbing, churning, scuttling over 2,000 miles of sandbar and rapid. Then into the lonely wastes of another, swifter stream, the Yellowstone, until we finally docked at South Sunday in Montana Territory. My ticket had cost $300, which left me about $50 in my pocket, and the slim hope that there would be a letter at the express office with my remittance from England.
Afternoon. Just in off the boat?
Right. I wonder if there's a letter for me, JB Kendall.
Kendall, any trouble on the way up? I hear the Sioux been kicking up their heels. Sitting bulls making big medicine again. Don't sound good.
We didn't see any.
Kendall, you English, ain't you?
Yes.
I figured by your talk. Don't see many of you in these parts. Nope. Nothing for you, mister.
You're sure? It's rather important. From England?
Nope. Nothing. Maybe tomorrow on the overland, though. They say, you planning to stay a while?
I think so.
Better get and register then.
Register?
Over to Sheriff Clanton's office. There's a notice on the wall, maybe missed your attention. All strangers to South Sunday will, within 1 hour of arrival, register at the office of the sheriff or be prosecuted. That's Clanton's orders. Surprised you missed the signs. They're all over.
Thank you.
Well, that's all right. Wouldn't want to see you in trouble. This ain't the healthiest town in the territory, not for strangers.
Oh, any particular reason?
What? Oh, excuse me. Afternoon, Mr. Farley. This here's Mr. Kendall, just off the boat. I was telling him about registering.
Now, that's a good idea.
Dick Farley is one of the sheriff's deputies. Helps keep South Sunday law-abiding. Big job in
What's
East
your
Time,
business,
Chester,
Mr.
big
Kendall?
job.
Oh, you might call me a jack of all trades.
I might.
I do a little writing for a London newspaper, you know. An Englishman's view of the Wild West, that sort of thing.
We don't take to strangers.
Oh, really? Shame. I've been looking forward to my visit.
Yeah, well, now, you've seen it. You know what it's like, so supposing you get yourself back on that boat and try up the line to Rosebud at Junction City, huh?
I don't think so. Now, if you'll pardon me, I'll register at your office.
You carrying a gun?
No.
Put your hands up. Over your head. Higher. Now, Now, you hold it just like that. Just so. All right. That's your baggage?
Yes.
Pick it up.
I beg your pardon.
I said pick it up.
Oh.
All right, come on.
Tell me, Mr. Farley, how did your town get its name?
How should I know?
Well, I thought you'd take an interest, just as a matter of pride. A civic pride.
Mister, I don't like the way you talk or what you say, so you shut your mouth. Here? Inside.
Where you been, Dake?
I've been checking on this fella, Frank. He just come in off the boat. He says he's a writer at a newspaper in London or something. He ain't carrying nothing. I searched him.
You're Sheriff Clanton?
Yeah.
JB Kendall. I understand I have to register.
Yeah. A writer, huh? You want to write about South Sunday?
I might.
How come?
As a matter of fact, the name intrigued me.
You kidding?
No, not at all. I write about the West, and you're in the heart of it. From what I understand, there might be trouble brewing with the Sioux and the Cheyenne. I'd like to be here if it blows up.
What's the name of your paper?
The London Times.
You ever hear of it, Dake?
No.
Mister, all kinds come to these here parts. Now, I ain't exactly calling you a liar.
That's quite all right. One can't be too careful. Here, my papers.
JB Kendall. Very Southern. London Times. That's what it says. Here, you see, Dake?
Yeah, that's what it says.
Any other strangers get off the boat with him?
No, just him.
Well, you sound all right to me, Mr. Kendall. Now, just you remember, I got a set of rules here. You live by them while you're here. You'll get along.
That seems fair enough.
No man, except them authorized by me, carries a gun in South Sunday. That way we don't get a bunch of crazy, liquored-up miners and the like shooting up the place.
It seems the usual thing for a man to be armed in most places.
It ain't usual here. It's against the law.
Oh, I see.
You got yourself fixed up at the hotel?
No, not yet.
Well, then you go on over to the Empire, Mr. Kendall. You tell them Frank Clanton sent you. They'll take care of you.
Very good of you.
Dake, take a look at his baggage.
Right.
Well, you're going to search my luggage?
That's right, mister. There are no guns in South Sunday, not worn or hidden.
That's the law.
I haven't got one.
I sure am glad to hear it. I like a peaceable man. Yes, sir. A fella like you might think of settling down here in South Sunday. It's the quietest little town in Montana Territory. It's an opportunity for a man.
Well, I'll keep it in mind, Mr. Clanton.
There ain't nothing in his bags.
Well, now, Mr. Kendall, you enjoy your stay here. Anything you want, you just ask me. And I'd appreciate it, sir, if you put my name in your paper. Whatever you want to say is okay with me.
The JB stood for Jeremy Bryan.
My hotel room.
He was a remittance man, banished from England by his family, an ex-soldier of the wars in India, kicked out of the army for refusing to testify at the court-martial hearing of an officer he believed innocent.
But I wasn't alone for long.
Antony Ellis himself was an Englishman. He incorporated period slang and formed a picture of the West from the perspective of a man able to get on the inside.
Then I think of an old man, a miner I met in Fort Benton. His name was Shorthorn Tom. On our journey to locate his lost mine, he gave me an insight into Western speech which I have found to be most valuable. He was leading a balky mule along a winding trail, and the air was rather blue with invective.
I ain't really cussing, just sort of air in your lungs. Now you take that mule. I call him a son of a gun. Now, that ain't rightly so, 'cause anybody can see he ain't nothing but a son of a mule. But he's a no good son of a gun, 'cause that's the way it goes, see?
Yes, I follow you. Oh, speaking of that, what exactly is son of a gun stew?
Son of a gun stew? Shucks, I'll tell you. That's just about the best thing a man ever put in his inside. It's got brains and sweetbreads. Oh, gotta be a fresh-killed calf. Oh, gotta be. And tongue, liver, lights, heart, kidney. I tell you, mister, that is a something. Better than pooch any day. Yes, sir, when I find this claim, I'm going to get me a new set of teeth, and I'll show you how to make son of a gun stew. Throw everything in it except in the hair, horns, and holler. Oh, that's a real grub.
Sounds it. Tell me, what is hardtail?
Oh, just a mule, like this ornery stump-sucking son of a gun.
Oh, hardtail, mule.
Correct.
Stump sucker.
Ain't you never seen a horse getting his teeth against something and sucking wind? That's what a stump sucker is. Oh, you don't want nothing to do with a critter like that. No, sir.
I've heard the expression riding herd on a woman.
Oh, that's courting riding herds. Courting. Boy, you stick around old Shorthorn Tom, he'll have you talking as smart as a bunkhouse rat. Hey, you know what a woman is out in these parts?
Oh, what?
Calico, painted cat, sage hen, cow bunny, long-haired partner, quail, squaw. You know what we call a fellow like you, green from the east? Tenderfoot, button, dude, prune picker, pilgrim, softhorn, a greener.
Yes, well, what about you?
Me? A rawhide, coffee cooler, pocket hunter, river sniper. Of course, fellas call me a lot of other things, too. It don't really matter what they call you, though. It's what you are that counts. Now, I take you for a good...
This episode, the only one which used multiple vignettes, was called Random Notes and first aired on April 27th, 1958.
Shorthorn Tom never did find his lost mine. He died up in the Highwood Mountains. I was with him.
KMPC was such a part of my soul, my life. But I began when KMPC was a little wonderful Spanish house in Beverly Hills.
Okay, that's when it was owned by the oil company, right?
No. It was owned by G.A. Richards.
Then that was before the oil company.
WGAR. Oh, no, I think the oil company was before.
That's where MPC came from, was Macmillan Petroleum Company. But that's right, he was a private owner in Beverly Hills.
Yeah, and he also owned WGAR in Detroit. And his name was G.A. Richards.
Dare I ask roughly the time period we're talking?
Yeah, this was about 42.
And what were you doing there? You were a newscaster, or?
No, I started out as an announcer. Then I became an actor, of all things, on a show called The Hermit's Cave. It was a staple. I played the hermit. He cackled a lot. Then I became a newscaster. Then I became news editor in 1942 or 43, around there.
John Dehner had incredible range, able to play toothless drunks, dashing leading men, vile psychopaths, pillars of the community, and no-nonsense anti-heroes.
I did every accent known to man. South Slabovian, East Yemeni, and I did it with absolute perfection because nobody knew what they sounded like. Not a soul. The director or producer said, well, can you do this and that? And I said, of course I can. And you did it? And he said, beautiful. Because he didn't know what it was supposed to sound like.
Had a walk. Ho. Had a trap.
In the 1950s, Dehner was heard all over CBS dramas. He auditioned for the lead in both Gunsmoke and Fort Laramie, but was worried about being typecast as a Western actor. This audition record with Dehner as Captain Lee Quince was recorded on July 25th, 1955.
Fort Laramie.
Although the role went to Raymond Burr, Dehner appeared in numerous supporting Western parts, until cast by Antony Ellis in Frontier Gentlemen.
Speaking of fortunes, reminds me of an extraordinary thing that happened in Montana Territory. As soon as we reach the next stage station, I'll jot it down.
In a moment, we return to Frontier Gentlemen. A man sets an elaborate scheme in motion. He plans it so well that it can't be stopped. This proves ironic when the schemer is powerless to prevent the unexpected conclusion, becoming literally his own victim. Hear John Lund in today's startling CBS radio drama of
suspense. Lund will play the fast-talking promoter who overplays his own hand. It's a story well calculated to keep you in suspense. Today on most of these stations. And now we return you to the Antony Ellis production of Frontier Gentlemen.
The rocketing coach of the Cheyenne and Black Hills stage line had crossed into Wyoming territory. There seems no end to this incredible land of the American West. As the dark hills to the north and east fall away, the land becomes more rolling. I mention an event in Montana territory that happened to a Chinese gentleman named Li Chao. He was a well-educated man, scrupulously honest, and ran a general supply store in Helena. During a few days of my visit, I enjoyed several cups of tea and one or two chess games with him. I remember that one afternoon he seemed quite excited. His hands shook as he poured.
This is a momentous day for me, my friend, Kendall.
Oh?
And you are the first to know. I am now an owner of a mine.
No.
Yes. Here, let me show you. Here. A legal document which gives me possession of the Lucky Hand placer claim.
Well, is it good?
Good. Oh, my friend Kendall, I have paid for it with my life savings. $40,000. You know that some men have been bringing me their gold dust to keep for them, as in a bank.
Yes, I remember you telling me.
It was their claim which I bought. I took much time, much trade talk, but finally they agreed to sell. And now I am a mine owner. As soon as I have made my fortune, Kendall, I shall return to China and live the remainder of my life in peace and security. Li
Chao was evidently the last, or next to last man in Helena to find out what had happened. I heard it 3 days later from the barber who was shaving me.
Why, man, this is the biggest joke in Helena since old man Hornsby strung up that mule for kicking his wife. You mean you ain't heard?
No, I really haven't.
well, there's a Chinese gent along the street, Li Chao.
I know him.
You know he bought himself a mine?
Yes, I know.
You know it's salted?
Salted?
He paid $40,000 for a salted mine. What the boys done was to take him a bag of gold dust every day to hold for them. Lee figures they got a whopper clean. He wants to buy in partners. No, sir, says they. Then when Lee's prime real good, the boys figures how they've done enough work and they're ready to sell out. Li Chao buys for $40,000. The fellas take that dust and vamoose, leaving Li Chao with a deed to a vegetable farm. That's all it's good for. Hold your head still, mister. I don't want to slice you.
Yeah. Does he know yet?
If he don't, he's the only man in Helena ain't.
What about the men who sold the claim to him?
Well, last I heard, they was headed for California.
Good morning, my friend, Mr. Kendall.
Good morning, Mr. Lee.
You appear downcast. Is something the matter?
I've just heard some rather bad news. It's about your claim.
Oh?
You've been cheated, Mr. Lee. Oh. There's no gold. The men who sold it to you knew it.
So? But I do not understand. Yesterday, my boys who work for me, they bring me a sack of dust. Oh, here. See for yourself. It is the same as I have seen before, huh?
Your workers took this out of the claim.
Oh, it is just as it has always been. I do not understand this talk of cheating.
Neither do I, Mr. Lee.
Oh, here, my friend, G. Payne. He's a very fine miner, work for me. Morning, G.
Good morning, Lee. Good morning, honored sir.
How do you do, sir?
Oh, my friend here, Mr. Kendall. He's worried about the claim.
He's worried? Why?
Well, there is talk of assaulting the mine.
The salt then is of gold. Here, from the work of yesterday. An ounce more than the first day.
I do not know from where you hear this bad news, my friend, Mr. Kendall, but if the rest of my life is as unfortunate, I shall indeed be a rich and happy man. Will you take a cup of tea with me?
A day or so later, I left Helena and didn't return for about 3 weeks. Then it was only to spend an hour or so arranging for transportation to Fort Benton. I went to the store of Mr. Lee Chow and found to my surprise that it was closed. I walked to the barber shop and over a hair trimming learned what had happened during my...
Lee Chow. Mister, you whisper that name around these parts. Say, ain't I seen you before?
Yes, I came in for a shave a few weeks ago.
Well, I never forget a face.
Well, what about Lee Chow?
Oh, he's gone. China, they say.
What happened?
Well, he sold that claim of his.
Oh. Well, I'm glad to hear it.
Well, maybe you are, but there's a passel of fellas around here who ain't. You know what that son of a gun did?
What?
Salted his mind.
But
ain't that something? Everybody figuring Lee Chow an honest man, and he salts a mine. It shows you.
How? I mean, I thought the claim had turned out to be good. What do you call it, a bonanza?
That's what everybody thought.
Well?
You know what he was doing? Every day he had one of his coolies bringing a sack of dust. Made sure people saw it. After a while, fellas began figuring that Lee really had struck pay dirt. Couple of them went in to see Lee. He showed them a sack of dust.
Yeah, he showed it to me.
Well, sure he did. And he had one other sack. That's all he had. One he kept in the store, the other he give back to the coolie who bring it in the next day. It ain't nothing to laugh at, mister. Do you know what he done?
No, I haven't any idea.
Well, he sold that worthless bit of ground for $100,000. Yes, sir, $100,000. Then he skips off to China. Biggest swindle I ever seen in the territory. Fellas who bought it found out the next day. Ain't enough dust in the claim to cover a flea. But it was too late.
Veteran sound artists Tom Hanley and Bill James were by 1958 the best in the business. Kendall was the only continuing character in the series, with the exception of 4 episodes involving an ex-Confederate lady gambler named Belle Siddons, voiced by Janine Bates Lansworth.
Badlands District. The last time I had seen it was 2 months earlier in Cheyenne. It was a gambling establishment belonging to a rather extraordinary woman who called herself Madame Verdi. To be exact, Lurleen Monteverdi. Owing to the fact that during the war she had been a Confederate spy, she no longer used her real name, which I knew to be Belle Siddons. It was mid-morning, a comparatively quiet hour in Deadwood as I strolled toward the tent. Off to one side, I saw the wagon that had been converted into a type of omnibus, and which served as Miss Siddons' living quarters, complete with lace curtains and satin cushions. At that moment, the wagon door opened, and she stepped down.
Mr. Kendall.
Well...
Mr. Kendall, how nice to see you
Well, I'm
again.
delighted to see you, Madame Verdi.
Well, I was thinking of changing to Vestal, but it's still Verdi, Mr. Kendall. Unless we're alone, then I think I'd rather you call me Belle.
Yes, thank you. When did you arrive in Deadwood?
Last night. The tent has only just gone up.
And I hope you have better luck than you had in Cheyenne.
Where there's gold fever, there's more than enough business for all. I don't think the gentlemen of Deadwood will object to my presence.
When will you open?
Tonight. But what about you? Really, I've never expected to see you again. What have you been doing?
Oh, not much. Writing my articles, sending them to London, hoping they'll be printed.
I should have thought you'd have joined the gold hunt in the Black Hills.
No, I'm afraid I've never make a successful prospector.
Oh, what a strange man you are. Will you come with me to the tent?
Yes, of course.
I want to make sure the tables are ready for tonight. Then perhaps you'll take me to breakfast.
All production costs for Frontier Gentlemen were nationally sustained by CBS.
These are some of the things which I've seen, heard during my travels. I find myself despondent at the thought of leaving this country and its people, yet my sadness is tempered with the realization that perhaps someday I shall come back to the great American West, which for the past several months has been my home.
Frontier Gentleman was written, produced, and directed by Antony Ellis and stars John Dehner as J.B. Kendall. Featured in the cast were Ben Wright, Virginia Gregg, Lawrence Dobkin, Joseph Kearns, Vic Perrin, Jack Crucian, Jack Moyles, and Harry Bartell. Bud Sewell speaking.
CBS, caution before speed. This is the CBS Radio Network.
In November, the network announced it was dropping Nora Drake, Our Gal Sunday, Backstage Wife, The FBI in Peace and War, The Galen Drake Show, and Frontier Gentleman. In a move unusual for the time, CBS decided to import another Western that had already had success on television. The 41st and final episode was a rebroadcast of Random Notes. Today, all episodes exist in good to great listening quality, thanks to transcription. Antony Ellis passed away in 1967 from cancer at the age of 47.